Hello again, and welcome to the St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends Podcast. Tom Calhoun here to shine a light on the stories of those instrumental in blues history. The Blues Legends Podcast is presented by Sarah Honda, O'Fallon, Illinois. Check out all the great deals and their 618 Sarah Bucks offer at sarahhondaofallon.com. A participating sponsor, Shane McGranahan, Country Financial. Call Shane at 618-476-3366 for all your home and auto insurance needs. On this episode, we remember the horrible motorcycle accident in 1977 that took the life of blues rising star and now Blues Hall of Famer Bob Gassoff. We'll do so, but also focus on the positive outcome in life for his son, Bob Gassoff Jr. Bob Jr. was not yet born when the accident happened, but he has taken life by the horns with the help of his blues family and the men of the team who have nurtured him in his father's absence. Stick around, the Bob Gassoff story, both Bobs, coming up in 60 seconds.
When it's time to find your next car, what's changed in your life? What's driving you to start the process? What are you really looking for? These are the questions we're asking at Sarah Honda. We believe in real communication, real problem solving, and trustworthy long-term relationships with our customers. We're part of your community, and we want you to be part of ours. At Sarah Honda, the experience drives everything. You've got a lot going on in life, and you depend on your car to get you to places you need to be. So when it's time for maintenance or repair, we know you need it done fast and done right. Convenience and quality customer service with team members you can trust. That's what you're looking for. We'll get you safely back on the road and back to your busy life. At Sarah Honda, the experience drives everything.
We are thrilled on this episode of the Blues Legends Podcast to have Bob Gassoff with us. Of course, his story and his father's story have many aspects to it, and we'll try to touch as many of those as we can as we go. Bob, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Happy to be here.
Appreciate your time. I'm sure most of you who listen to the podcast are familiar with Blues Hall of Famer Bob Gassoff, his short but impressive career with the Blues, and his very unfortunate accidental death at a team party. We'll touch on that in a little bit and get Bob's thoughts. But first, we'll focus on our guest's impressive life after that fateful day. Bob, talk about your family a little bit, current family. Who are the people most important to you in 2026?
Well, I'm fortunate to have a lot of families, and my local family here, and my mom's from here, obviously, and met my dad when he played here, and we resided. We came back home about when I was 30 years old. This has always been kind of home, even though I was off doing my own various things through many years, and my three kids and my son, little Bobby, who's not so little. He's like 6'3.5" and 200 pounds, and he's got hands that can score. So thank God he looks like me, because I might have to ask some questions. But he's doing really well. He's a senior at Chaminade, and I had two girls, one in high school, one about to be in high school. One was 16 and 13. So we're all back here and at home in St. Louis, and my father's family is still doing well up in northern British Columbia, and we get up there as about as often as we can to see my 95-year-old grandfather, who's still with us and going very strong. And so everybody on that side's there. That's like our second home, and I'm here back in the family business with my dad. My dad, my mom remarried when I was young at 10, and my dad and Laura Distributing here, Steve Laura, Anheuser-Busch distributor for the city. And when I came back to St. Louis, got back in the business and started branching off into some various different, wine and spirits and businesses and whatnot. We still have the beer business, obviously. And so stay pretty busy with that and coaching hockey teams. I had, 4 hockey teams I was running around at one point, still have three and field hockey team. So that keeps me pretty busy.
Sounds like you got enough on your plate, that's for sure. So, Bobby, let's talk about him a little bit. When we talked on the phone several weeks back, you were traveling with him to a hockey tournament. So, you got a future in the sport?
He's doing really well. Yeah, he continues to surprise and impress me. Every year he just keeps getting better, and he's got a lot of aspects of his game that I never had, and he's got a great shot, and he's got size, and so he's got some opportunities to go play. Some junior teams have been very interested in him, and we'll see what happens. It's kind of the unsettling unknown between now and middle of the summer when things kind of get figured out. But he's doing really well. And Chaminade, from a high school standpoint, is a really good team this year. And I think there might be a rematch with hopefully them and DeSmet in the finals this year. And maybe they can get one from DeSmet this year. But he's playing for the AAA Blues, and is doing really well.
Well, best of luck to him and the Gassoff family for maybe another long hockey career. Let's talk about yours a little bit. Were the Blues players involved in helping you getting started in your hockey journey?
100%. I mean, it's we the other aspect of family that that I have is obviously my Blues family, and with my dad's obviously involvement and situation with his accident. I was really raised by not just my mom and my family, my immediate family, but the Blues family as well. So spent a lot of time my whole life at the old arena. That was really my second home, and my dad wasn't around, but I always had about 20 other dads filling in every year, with the team, and grew up very close to the team, and in a way that allowed me to kind of get to know my dad and kind of be familiar with him without really knowing him in person, just through the other guys. And at that time, certainly the other guys that play with my dad and the stories that they had, and still share with me today. And every memory is one that I try to hold on to near and dear and treasure, from whatever, a fan or a teammate or somebody who saw my dad or met my dad. Still to this day, still remember vividly him, and the impact that he had on them at that time, which was kind of humbling to kind of still see.
Sure. So you played a little bit of junior hockey and then went on to the University of Michigan and played for the coach, Red Berenson there, won a national championship in 98. You were freshman on that team, right?
I was. We had 10 freshmen that year at Michigan, and we had just replaced what's probably still considered the best, most talented class that Michigan's ever had, which was Brendan Morrison, Jason Botterill, Mike Legg, a host of different players, John Madden, just to name a few, Harold Schock, and so we weren't supposed to win anything that year. It was a rebuilding year, but at Michigan we don't like to rebuild; we just like to reload. And but we had 10 freshmen that year, and we had nine dressed. I was one of the nine dressed in the championship game all through playoffs. So of 18 skaters, literally half the team was freshmen, and it was a pretty special year. We came together under some great leadership with Marty Turco and Bill McCall and Chris Fox, to name a few of the guys, and Matt Herr, and and we were kind of struggling and growing as a team that year, and we really came together at the end of the year. And because had so many freshmen, we didn't expect a lot of ourselves, and we knew we needed to buy into our team plan, and buy into each other. And it was unbelievable character learning moment in my life, to know that you don't always have to have the best talent, and talent doesn't win championships. It's the best team and the chemistry that wins championships. And when you buy into each other and you buy into what you guys are doing, good things can happen, and a little bit of luck has to go your way too. And luckily, we were able to pull it together that year. We were able to beat Boston College at the Fleet Center in Boston in front of 18,000 Boston College fans, and kind of rained on Bean Potts Parade, and then skipped town and went back to celebrate in Ann Arbor. And it was a hell of a year. The one, it seems like it was yesterday. Um, but with 10 freshmen, we thought, man, this is pretty cool. We're going to do this 3 more years, right? Well, it doesn't really work out that way. So, like I said, a lot of things have to go right, have to go your way, and you have to play the best hockey that you can and be the best team that you can. But sometimes a little luck is involved as well, and you need those bounces to go your way one way or the other. And we got them that year.
That was Coach Berenson's second national title that year, and you had Mike Van Ryn and some other guys on that team that folks would recognize the names of. So then you go on to play a little minor league hockey for the Blackhawks and Blues organization. Played a little bit at Peoria. Anything outstanding in your mind about those days?
Well, that was a great year. I was back and forth between Worcester and Peoria, and Mike Van Ryn was with me in Worcester, and we were at Michigan together. And so I lived with Mike in college, and I lived with Mike my first year pro. He was there a little bit before I was in Worcester, and then when Mike came here in 2019 to coach, and they won the cup a couple years later when COVID happened. He kept his family back in Florida, and he moved in with me for 2 years. So it was pretty fun living with your college roommate in your mid 40s. I got to tell you, it was like back to school, Rodney Dangerfield at times again. But we had a lot of fun, and a lot of great teammates there. Barrett Jackman, one of my very good close friends to this day, and we played together after playing against each other in juniors in the British Columbia Junior League. In fact, our first time we ever met was at center ice in the middle of a line brawl, and we were beating the tar out of each other at in Trail in the British Columbia League, and but we had a great host of characters and great team in Worcester and Peoria both, and that was definitely a fun special year.
That was a pretty good challenge going at it with Jax, I would think.
It was. It was. It was. We both kind of took a few and gave a few, and he was a young kid, and I think he was like 16 or something at the time, and I was 19, so he was young. So he still says, it was child abuse, but it was pretty fun. But it was a line brawl. Everybody else was going except he and I, and then we just decided to go, and we had a pretty good one, and we ended up on the glass. And it's a funny story because the fans in that rink were kind of going after me, and that's another story I can talk about. But a fan came over and hit me in the glass, and I let go of Jackson. Had to kind of go in the part way in the stands after somebody to get a little retribution, and so we still talk about it to this day.
Sounds like you inherited a little dad's ability there, and maybe a little hairline trigger there too.
Well, a little bit. You got to work with the tools that God gave you, and I certainly wasn't a goal scorer, finesse player, but I played hard and played tough and aggressive, and similar to the way that Dad played. But that was a fun year before I went to Michigan, playing in the BC League and playing north across the border after playing in the USHL for a couple of years. But it was interesting. We'd go into town. I played for Chilliwack, and we'd go into these towns, Nanaimo and Trail and Cowichan Valley, and these places that I'd never been to. And we're in warm-ups, and they're holding up signs that say, "Gassoff, you suck. We're going to kill you." And I'm like, what the hell is going on? After like the second trip, I finally realized this town is still pissed off at my dad and my uncles from coming in 30 years earlier and beating the crap out of the team, and maybe a few other people there in the rink on the way out. So, but it was a lot of fun. We had a fun, tough team in Chilliwack, and another great memory.
Great. Not too far from the family estate up there in BC too, right?
Just about 6 hours south. You got to go up 6 hours north up to Quesnel, where the family still all resides up there, just south of Prince George. And like I said, we get up there, every year. We take the family, fly into Seattle, and get a car and drive the whole 10 hours all the way up to Quesnel. It's some of the most beautiful countryside you can see, and everybody's up there. And it was really important for me to stay close to that part of my family. And I have my mom to thank for that. When after my dad's accident, I mean, she really, she carried the mail in that regard to make sure that I was very close to that family, knew that family, and honestly, in some ways closer to that family than my family, some of my family members here in St. Louis, and it's a very special, unique bond that I have with them, and I cherish, and I have her to thank for that because she certainly didn't need to do that, and but she did. It was very important to her, and it was again something one of those things that allowed me to kind of stay connected to my father without ever really knowing him.
Well, she's a good Belleville girl, so she took care of that family business. I'm a Belleville guy myself, so we have that in common.
Yep.
Hang in there. More of the Bob Gassoff story in 30 seconds.
Home is more than a place. It's full of the people and moments that matter most. Providing for loved ones, expanding your horizons, or simply living the life you love. With all you have to protect, choose insurance you can count on so you can experience more of what you live for. Country Financial. Experience more.
Call Shane McGranahan, taking care of all your insurance needs in Missouri and Illinois. So let's move on a little bit from your hockey days. And so you make the decision at age 26 to join the Navy, and you're accepted into officer candidate school in Florida, basic underwater demolition SEAL training in 2004. I mean, this is so impressive to me. Being a Navy SEAL, I mean, that is an elite thing on your resume for anybody. And then you're, off in Iraq, and you've got other assignments in your Navy days. Talk about that a little bit, and if you can, talk about maybe some of the danger that you were exposed to during those years.
Yeah, sure. I mean, going in the military path was always something that I had wanted to do, and being a SEAL after hockey, I didn't know how that was going to work out because obviously I was playing hockey, but 9/11 happened when I was in the Blues farm team. I remember being in Worcester that day and seeing Donnie Granato at practice. We canceled practice, obviously. Everything had just happened, and he had some family in New York, and everybody was really, unsure what we were getting ready to face, as a society and civilization. And the world changed, right? Everybody knows where they were, and I know right where I was at the Centrum in Worcester, and I had a fun year playing that year, but I also had some hard realities of some close friends of mine that were already completed through SEAL training. Were getting ready to go down range and go to war, and so I had a little bit of a conflict within me, and playing a game back home and having fun and doing that when other guys were doing more serious things and um, you know. Defending our country and whatnot. So the next year, I was getting ready to go to. I was at the Blackhawks farm team camp in Norfolk, and was looking at staying there, and then I was probably going to be in a similar situation where I was going to be back and forth with Roanoke and Norfolk, and I had to make a hard decision. It's like, I want to go be a SEAL. There's too much other stuff going on in the world, and I could play hockey for many more years, and that would be great for me, but I want to do something that was a little bit more than just me, and it was my turn to kind of step forward and go serve and do my part and what I wanted to do, and went through SEAL training and made it through SEAL training, and again. You got to be well prepared, but a little bit of luck's got to go your way too, and make sure you stay injury free. And well, luckily, I was one of 24 original guys out of about 238 that started training that year, and 2004 it was, and went to a West Coast based SEAL team after that. My team was already deployed, so I did a short deployment with them in the last part of their deployment in Southeast Asia, and was in an area where there was real firefights going on right then and there, and people don't know about that part of the world that and what was going on then for the most part, but there was a lot of stuff going on in the world, and things got real really quick, and then fast forward into my deployment workup with my platoon. We deployed in '07 during the summer to Iraq. About April to October, November timeframe, and it was during the surge. the Al Anbar awakening. So there's a lot going on in Al Anbar. We were kind of in between, Ramadi, Fallujah in that area, which, um, had a lot of, hardened battles the year before in 2006. And we lost, a couple of my good friends. My best friend was my swim buddy all through SEAL training. Mark Lee was the first guy we lost in Iraq in 2006. So we were a year after the same kind of deployment cycle they did, the summer deployment in '06. We came the summer of '07, and Mark was killed in Ramadi. Mikey Mansour, who earned the Medal of Honor for saving several teammates of his on the rooftop, falling on a grenade that was lobbed into their position, was also a part of that element. And yeah, it was the real deal. I mean, it was 2003, 2004 to, you know, when I got out about, end of 2008, 2009, there was a lot of stuff going on, and we lost a lot of good friends. And, um, Bobby, my young Bobby, came along a little bit sooner than we were planning on having kids. And, I didn't know how long I was going to be a SEAL. I didn't know if I didn't think I'd be a 20-year guy, but I certainly thought I'd be an 8, 10, 12-year guy. But, when Bobby came along, and having had lost, a lot of really good, close friends to me already at that point, I knew that was something that I didn't really want to do once I had kids of my own, because I grew up without my father. And once that happened, with Bobby coming along, it kind of changed my priorities and my outlook, and kind of had to make do with. It's like I had to make do with my professional hockey career. I had to make do with what I did as an active duty SEAL, and then kind of move into what my next priorities were, and taking care of my kids, and being a dad and to them that I never had with my father. And that's when we decided to move back here to St. Louis, and had two other children, two beautiful girls. Stayed in as a reservist for a long time, trying to continue to do what I could in my new life and new position and realities, and stay under the boat, as we like to say in the Navy. But certainly not doing the stuff that I was doing. That a lot of my friends, my buddies, continue to do some incredible work. We just came back from I came back from a SEAL veteran hockey event down in Tampa, in conjunction with the outdoor game that they just had with Boston and Tampa. And they have 4 teams every year for the outdoor series. And just like our Blues St. Louis Warriors team, they had Warriors from Minnesota and Chicago, and the Warriors from Tampa. And then we had a Navy SEAL Foundation team that was comprised of all SEALs. We had a couple Green Beret brothers that joined us down there, and it was really awesome to get together and be on the ice with your fellow brother in arms SEALs teammates. And I'm a little bit older, and these guys are a little bit younger than me, but we had a lot of fun down there. And it's when you get the opportunity to put kind of my two worlds, the most important things to me, being a SEAL and being a hockey player my whole life, when they intersect, it's pretty neat.
Sounds great. Yeah. And thank you for your amazing service in the SEALs, and having been in the Army Reserve for a while myself, makes me feel pretty inadequate thinking about some of the things you guys went through. But anyway, let's move along a little bit. You were 2 months from being born in 1977 when your dad was, as most blues fans know, tragically killed in a motorcycle accident on Memorial Day weekend at Gary Unger's farm in Gray Summit. I'm sure you were shielded a little bit, at least a little bit, from that terrible day by your mom and others as a youngster. How did you become aware that your dad was a rising star in the NHL and that he had lost his life, before you were born?
Well, it's hard to put my finger on any particular moment. It's something that's always been there with me, even from a young kid. I understood that my dad, uh, was a special person, special player, and had made such an impact on the team, and the community, and the organization. And as I got older and learned more and became more aware and just heard more stories, the picture kind of continues to get painted, more and more vividly, right? And I look back and always think of, like, what could have been, if he was here. Things, how different things could have been. But that's the reality that you have, and you don't get to pick your reality. You gotta endure it, and move on, and make the best of it. But just knowing, and I'm very, very fortunate to have such a good relationship with so many of my dad's teammates. Bruce Affleck, Larry Patey, John Wensick, Blues alumni. That we have the best Blues alumni, the best alumni in the NHL, the Blues Alumni Association, and we have so many guys, fortunately, that have stayed in St. Louis, as you know, that retired here. That St. Louis was a stopping point in some part of their career, and this is the place that they decided to come back and raise their family. It's a special, unique place. Obviously, Bob and Barclay Plager, Emil Francis when he was back here. Those were the guys that really kind of took me in, and my dad and Bob and Bark were really close. My dad was going to name me Barkley after his best friend, and after his accident, my mom named me after my father, but kept the Barkley in my name. And
Yeah.
Bob and Bark were at the hospital when I was born, and it's just so special that I was able to have the type of childhood that I did, and under the circumstances, and just again get to know how special that dad was and the impact that he had, and through 4 short years here, the player that he was becoming, and Bark and Emil, saying he was going to be the captain, the next year, and they were building the organization, and he was a big part of that. And Bernie says to this day that the 80-81 team was one of the best teams they ever had, and the one thing they were lacking was toughness and and debt. So who knows what could have been and what would have happened, but to know that he had that type of impact and impression on his teammates and the team and the organization and the city is humbling and flattering, and it gives you a lot to live up to.
Yeah. All that you've just said has been verified on previous podcasts by Red Berenson, Gary Unger, Susie Matthews. People that I've had on the podcast just were devastated, and a lot of us fans were too when your dad had that awful accident. Gary Unger gets very emotional, and he did on my podcast, telling the story of that day. He said it's the worst day of his life and things like that. And I know there was some legal action after the accident. Is that all behind you now? It seems like he has said that he visits with you when he gets back into town.
Yeah, we do, and it was a very bad, dark time in a lot of people's lives, our lives, obviously, but he gets back every now and then, and we see each other regularly when he's back in town, and he and my dad were close, and both grew up in Canada and Western Canada, and we're both horseback riders and spent a lot of time together, and obviously away from the rink, and so I know that had a pretty devastating, significant impact on his life too. And we're all just trying to make the best of what we got left on the other side of that.
Yeah, I suppose you've seen, like most fans of hockey have seen, some of the YouTube videos of your dad and some of the fights that he was in. He was just doggone impressive for a guy who wasn't all that big, 5'10", 190, and he's taken on guys much bigger. He was nobody you wanted to mess with, and so many people have said that about your dad and the way he played.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I didn't see it firsthand. I didn't witness it firsthand, but he's got a big family, and brothers, and I have an uncle who also played in Vancouver, younger brother to my dad, and Brad played in Vancouver, and so also we go up and see the family every year, obviously, and still to this day, I mean, I mean, he's a beast. That's his nickname is Beastie, and he can literally, little Bobby, 6'3", 200+ pounds, will try to wrestle with him, and he'll end up picking up Bobby with one hand and put him on his shoulder, and having it way with him pretty easily. And it's like, wow. And like the amount of toughness and strength that he has, and even to this day, and he always says, yeah, your dad would have kicked my ass every day of the week and twice on Sunday, with no question about it. It's pretty frightening to think about, like how strong that he was, and now that's the way he played, and he he got in the league, certainly on his toughness, but Um, I guess I had that same hopefully work ethic that he had. That he was really refining his game and becoming an all around player, and becoming an integral piece of the D corps back when they were only playing 4 or 5 defensemen regularly back then, and he was really coming a long way. And he had earned a reputation, rightfully so, and created a little bit more room for himself maybe than most. And but he was taking advantage of that and making it count. And he would just keep working hard and working hard. And like I said, the way he was going, who knows what could have been. But um, you know, that's how it goes.
Is there any part of the Bob Gassoff story that we haven't told on this podcast, or that might be misunderstood by Blues fans? Is there something that you think needs to be more, I don't know, prevalent in the minds of Blues fans?
Of Dad, I mean, I don't know. I think everything that I hear is pretty spot on from what I hear, and how much of a dedicated teammate he was. And um, I mean, and again, it's a lot to live up to, but you don't have the type of impact that he had on so many different people if it wasn't real and it wasn't genuine, and it wasn't special. And so I'm very fortunate to again to try to even though it's a very unfortunate situation that I grew up under, I feel very fortunate to still be in that situation because he's a part of me, and he's always guided me and kind of focused me in to try to achieve the things that he achieved, and as a player and in person on and off the ice. And everybody always says, on the ice he played a certain way, right? He was tough, he was very aggressive, and a little bit wild at times, but off the ice he was really really soft spoken, and gentle and kind, and really warm and compassionate, and somebody that just makes you feel very proud that they're your father, and that you're part of them.
Well, he's got that banner hanging in the Enterprise Center in the initial class of the Blues Hall of Fame, and certainly deservedly so. Well, Bob, thanks so much for your time. I know you've got to keep the beer trucks rolling, so I'll let you go, and I appreciate so much you sharing some history with us here today, and all the best to you going forward. And obviously anything that we can do for you, or you know where to find us.
I appreciate the opportunity, Tom. Thanks so much for what you do. Go Blues.
Thanks for being with me for another episode of the St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends Podcast. We'll have another legend coming up soon, so stay tuned to our social media for news on who that legend might be. Visit paguytom.com or blueshockeylegends.com and sign up for our Legends email notifications. The Legends Podcast is also available on the Scoops Sports Network at scoopswithdannymac.com. Video of the podcast is published the Monday after the Friday release of the audio. As always, please like and share on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It all keeps the Legends Podcast alive and well. Tom Calhoun here saying thanks for being a fan, and let's go Blues!